Welcome to episode 27 of Discovering Nagasaki from a Local. My name is Chad. In my ongoing weekly vlogs, you can experience everyday life in this scenic and fascinating part of Japan. So far, no one was able to correctly answer either of last week's vlog questions. That hasn't happened for quite a while. The questions this week will definitely be easier to answer. The first question from last week was, what was the circular kitchen tool that was sitting in front of the vegetable oil in last week's cooking demo? The answer is a peeler. This one, in fact. It has 3 different types of peeling blades that you can rotate. The second question from last week was, how many people were in or near the fountain just after I showed you the sign at Kotohira's Sky Park? The answer is 8 people, 6 children and 2 adults. And now for this week's crash course in kanji root particles. Group N kanji root particles include hook, second class, heart, without fail, airhole, origin, alcohol, hook, crouch, change into, compare, north, purport, trillion, 7, tiger, hare, barracks, dragon, 9, vertical, round, characteristic, color, and world. I will cover Group O kanji root particles next week. Anyone who has an interest in Japanese food, fine arts, or martial arts will benefit from a basic knowledge of kanji. Remember to support this vlog channel by clicking on the subscribe button below, ringing the adjacent bell for update notifications, and clicking the thumbs up button. In today's vlog, I will show you how I bake kurumi raimugi pan, or organic walnut rye bread. I will also show you how sumiyaki is made locally from kashi, or oak, in Kayase, not far from Omura. Let's get started. In order to make organic walnut rye bread, I'll use the following ingredients: 160 grams of whole wheat flour, 710 grams of regular flour, 50 grams of rye flour, 50 grams of brown sugar, 13 grams of salt, 40 grams of olive oil, 85 grams of organic yeast, 360 grams of water, and during the last stage of mixing, 150 grams of raisins and 90 grams of crushed walnuts. The mixing process takes less than 8 minutes. The resulting dough has been allowed to rise slowly at room temperature until it filled the volume of this container. I'll take it out of the container now. Next, I will weigh out a total of 8 220-gram portions of this dough using an electronic scale. I'll do the first portion as an example. Almost there. That should be close enough. Now that I have 8 dough portions, I have to roll the dough with a small rolling pin. First, I will flatten it out to form an elongated oval, just like this. Then I will fold over 2 sides of the dough and join them in the middle by pressing them with my fingers. This resulting seam will be on the bottom of this loaf of bread. Now I have to stretch the dough out lengthwise until it is about the same length as the distance between the end of the roller and the hole on the roller. Now I'll place the dough on the bread pan over the silicone sheet. I try to make each portion symmetrical and about the same size. Next, I'll cut 3 slits into the bread with the bakery razor. 1, 2, 3. This is what the 8 dough portions look like before I put them in the proofer for the second rising period of 2 hours. As you can see, I have a lot of other bread rising in the proofer right now. This tray of walnut rye bread will go on top, just like this. The proofer is humid and set to a temperature of about 40 degrees Celsius. I've just taken the walnut rye bread out of the proofer. Notice how much the dough has risen. Now I need to spray some water on the dough before I put it in the oven. The oven is set to about 210 degrees Celsius with 18 minutes on the timer. The timer will sound in about 4.5 minutes. I have just sprinkled some rye flour on the surface of each loaf as a garnish. I'll turn off the timer now and show you the freshly baked bread. It's very hot, so I'll definitely need these silicone oven mitts to take this pan out of the oven. And here are the 8 organic walnut rye loaves. On my right, you can see some of the fruit buns that are cooling off on the rack. There isn't much room in the bakery right now, so I'll set this hot tray down on the edge of the sink. These walnut rye loaves need to cool down completely before I can put them into plastic bags. I'll deliver them to market tomorrow morning. I'm now in Karogi Valley, not far from Kayase Dam, the dam I showed you in episode 3. There are many farms in Karogi Valley, and they are all surrounded by scenic mountains. The fence on my left is being used to keep wild boar out of this farmland. The farmhouse above me on the right is owned by a friend of mine, Hirakida-san. He makes his own charcoal from local oak trees, kashinoki in Japanese. Today I'll show you how he processes the charcoal that he prepares in his homemade kiln. The natural setting here is terrific, but there isn't much space for parking on these narrow country roads. There are many people helping Hirakida-san today, including his wife in the foreground. Right now they are cutting and packing the most recent load of charcoal from his kiln. Here's a little peek inside his kiln. Right now the position of the sun is obscuring the view. Nearby you can see the next batch of oak that is going into the kiln. Beyond his charcoal kiln, he has a couple of storage sheds on the right. And a little further down this path are some suisen, or narcissus flowers, blooming. On my left you can see that Hirakida-san is growing some komatsuna in his small vegetable garden. And a few meters away is his small commercial shiitake mushroom farm. You can see how many logs he has here for growing mushrooms. I'll take you back now along the same path to show you the interior of one of his charcoal storage sheds. It's up ahead on the left, right next to this pile of sawdust. Inside you can see many large bags of charcoal that are protected from the rain. Hirakita-san sells each bag of charcoal for about 2,000 yen to local yakitori restaurants. Black charcoal like this is used for fuel, fertilizers, and many products that require activated charcoal, such as air and water filters. Just near the mouth of the charcoal kiln you can see a man in a green jacket roasting some sweet potatoes on a fire. Here's a closer look at the unprocessed oak branches and the interior of this kiln. Here are 8 photos that I took of this small sumiyaki facility in Kayase. You can see the cedar kindling they use to get the fire started in the kiln, the oak lumber that will be turned into charcoal, the circular saw and handsaws they use to cut the charcoal after it comes out of the oven, the way the charcoal is packed up, and a front view of the homemade low-oxygen kiln they use. Black oak charcoal like Hirakita-san's is desirable because it produces little or no smoke. This is how Hirakita-san cuts the charcoal with his circular saw. With many hands, the job gets done quickly. Although there are many sumiyaki facilities like this all over Japan, more than 60% of Japan's domestic demand for charcoal is now fulfilled with imported supplies. And now for this week's challenging questions. First, were there 4 trays of bread or more than 4 trays of bread in the proofer before I put the walnut rye bread tray in? Second, were there 8 people working at Kayase's sumiyaki facility or more than 8 people? Be the first to correctly answer both of these questions in the comments section below. I will announce the first 3 people who do so at the beginning of episode 28. You can find a complete list of the contents of my vlog episodes on the Facebook link listed below. Today's B-roll involved baking, so in episode 28, my B-roll will involve farming. See you next week.